Welcome everybody to our UCARE for You patient webinar number 16. My name is Carolina Vera and I come from the UCARE in Berlin, and we will be talking, and I will be your guest today. We will be talking about advances in treatments for urticaria and unmet needs in current clinical trials. Our faculty, so we will first hear from Dr. Iman Nasr from the UCARE at Royal Hospital in Oman. Then we will hear from Dr. Semra Demir from the UCARE at Istanbul University. And the last talk will be given from Associate Professor Dr. Maryam Khoshkhui from the UCARE at Mashhad, University of Medical Science from Iran. Our learning objectives. So we will want to see what are the insights and the challenges and unmet needs in patients with chronic urticaria. Also provide an overview what's going on and what are their future clinical trials, new treatment options for urticaria patients. And we, at the end, we would like to discuss these new approaches and how they will affect patients' quality of life. Here are our 3 talks that we will hear soon. We have 132 users from 38 different countries, as you can see marked here in green. And there will be a survey at the end. We want to hear your feedback and how to improve for further webinars. So please don't forget to fill up the form at the end of this webinar. Also, your questions and comments are really, really important. Leave us your comments at any time during the webinar, and we will answer or comment about it at the end. Subscribe to our newsletter from Galen. That way you will be informed of all the events happening in the UCARE network, and stay connected with us through social media. You can scan the code. I will also show it at the end of the webinar. And with that, thank you to our sponsors, and let's enjoy with the first talk. Professor Iman, the floors are yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here today. And I'm glad that my topic is really touches a very important aspect of patients' life. Current challenges and unmet needs in chronic spontaneous urticaria. And I'm really happy with all the efforts that the UCARE does in order to spread awareness as much as possible, and trying to fund clinical trials for better management and better disease awareness, better treatments for those patients. And I'll give you a very brief explanation on why these initiatives are there. So I have nothing to disclose related to this presentation. So what is urticaria, for those who did not hear about it or just want to know more? It's a disease where cells under the surface of the skin get suddenly activated, free histamine, a chemical which is responsible for the itch, the swelling, the redness that patients with urticaria suffer from. And when it becomes chronic, meaning that the symptoms keep coming and going for more than 6 weeks, this is when we call it chronic. And it's spontaneous, so it comes without usually triggers, and they last for less than 24 hours and disappear. Now, chronic urticaria is divided into 2 groups. A group which is spontaneous with a known or unknown cause, and we have an inducible urticaria. So spontaneous urticaria can happen all of a sudden. So you haven't eaten something different, you haven't taken any medications, and all of a sudden, probably at night or in the morning, it comes and surprises you with these red wheals over the body, or even a swelling, which we call angioedema, and it can be very annoying. And then it goes away within a few hours, not more than a day, you'll find it gone. Some known causes could be bacterial infection or viruses. It could be some diseases in your thyroid gland. And sometimes it may be because of some underlying autoimmune disease, such as rheumatological disorders, for example. But in the majority, there is really no cause. Inducible urticaria is when there is a physical or an unphysical trigger, such as heat, sweat, the sun, dermographism, where you write on the skin or just rub the skin and then you suddenly come up with a wheal, vibration, cold. So when exposing yourself to the cold or holding something cold in your hand, you end up developing wheals, redness, itchy, rashes. Now, who is at risk of chronic spontaneous urticaria? So 1% of us would get chronic urticaria. 2 out of 3 of them will suffer from spontaneous urticaria. And women, interestingly, are more commonly affected than men, twice as common as men. And it can affect adults and children. The typical time is the typical period is for children between 20 to 40 years of age. So this is what happens if we want to go and see this nasty mast cell. This is the cell causing the problem, where it contains histamine, the chemical that makes the itch. And we have here some receptors. So something bothers this cell, causing the histamine to release. And some say, is this an autoimmune condition? Is this an allergic? What is it exactly? So there are 3 mechanisms here. Either we have some form of antibody targeting the allergic antibody, the IgE, causing the mast cell to release the histamine. Maybe these antibodies will go directly to the receptors without having anything in between, or maybe there's an autoallergen that binds to these receptors and release histamine. And at the end, it ends up with the symptoms of itching, wheals, and swelling. So for how long is this disease going to last for? So usually it's between 1 to 5 years in most of the cases. Very rarely it goes beyond 8 years. So half of the patients, 50% will resolve within 6 months, 20% within 3 years, and another 20% between 5 or 10 years. And it rarely goes beyond this. It's really very annoying. And we sometimes get some hints that people with more severe disease, those who have swellings, angioedema with it, or if there is an inducible trigger, so by sun, by vibration, by pressure, like tight clothing, for example, can induce it, those tend to have a much longer disease duration. And a test which we call a positive autologous serum skin test, in which it's a test where we take the blood and we inject just the serum, taking away the red blood cells, and checking the skin for any redness and wheals that will result after injecting it under the skin. So this would mean some form of autoimmunity. Now, the chronic spontaneous urticaria really affects the patient's lives. And I have lots and lots of patients who have problems with their partners and spouses, with their children, where they even end up being very nasty with their children and shouting, and they can't tolerate anyone anymore. So it really affects the quality of life. They say, okay, it's a simple itch, a bit of itching, so what? Deal with it. Take some antihistamines, that's it. Well, it's not the case. This is not the case in lots of patients. So more than 40%, they report problems with relationship with their partners. Half of them, they don't sleep well, no concentration, they can't work normally, mood and irritability. And the 3/4 of them, nearly most of the patients, they stop or reduce doing fun things because they think, okay, something is going to happen to me. It's going to be unpredictable. So you can see all domains of the patient's life is affected: sleep, work, daily activities, appearance, and physical symptoms. And there was a study that was conducted just to see the burden of this disease on patients. usually 8 visits to a general practitioner. 1 in 3 of the patients will end up in the emergency room because of the severe disease. 1 in 5 get admitted to hospital, and lots, they end up visiting the dermatologist and the allergist. And why does it disrupt? Simply, it is frightening. It is painful when it comes to swellings. It's so disfiguring. So 2 out of 3 of these angioedema patients, they feel that they're going to die. Luckily, it doesn't cause death, this type of urticaria, but it really does cause significant impairment. And when they asked a number of patients, nearly 4,226 patients, the average impairment in the work productivity was 27% reduction, and their activity got reduced by 33%. And more studies went out there to see the global burden of urticaria. How much is urticaria affecting the population worldwide? And so many aspects, again, contributed to this burden. The prevalence is increasing. It has doubled, or maybe even in some countries up to 10 times how it was before over the past 10 years. The prevalence has increased, and 50% of the cases, they are resistant to the normal standard antihistamine treatment. The healthcare costs have rises significantly by visiting hospitals, emergency units, as well as admissions, and not to mention the amount of money lost by loss of productivity of work and abstention from school. This has really long-term effects on the patients, and especially if there were children in schools as well. So all the symptoms that those patients would suffer, they could tolerate it if it's a day or two, but no, it goes beyond that. Spontaneous urticaria, especially with angioedema and the factors that we have mentioned that can prolong, it can be a prolonged disease. It can be severe, poor response to antihistamine. And a recent study, another study, so involving 582 patients, where the diagnostic delay until they were diagnosed with chronic spontaneous urticaria was nearly 2 years, up to 2 years until they got the diagnosis. And when they asked those patients, 50%, they say of the patients, they have visited more than once, so they were not satisfied with just one doctor. They had to visit multiple doctors, and many of the patients felt that probably more doctors need to know about more about urticaria. 44% of them wanted more information about the treatment. They were not clear about the treatment and how to control the disease. And they want better access to treatments. So not all treatments are available in all countries that would control their symptoms. And if you compare it with a famous disease, which is psoriasis, again, chronic urticaria, as you see, patients report worse sleeping difficulties, more anxiety, more depression than even psoriasis. So the treatments of chronic urticaria, as we know, we start with 1 tablet of antihistamine and we go up until 4 tablets of antihistamine. But what if patients do not respond to these 4 tablets? There are other treatments such as anti-IgE treatment in a form of injections. There is also cyclosporine, and in some cases we give steroids, though we don't encourage steroids. So there are treatments available so far, and this is from the latest guidelines. But do all patients respond? Now, this is the problem. Just with 1 tablet of antihistamine daily, more than 50% do not respond. And if we increase the tablets to 2, 3, up to 4, when we reach the maximum dose of 4 tablets, still 30%, so a third of the patient haven't received full response. So their symptoms still persist, or maybe they got better, but still they are struggling and suffering. So then we give the anti-IgE treatment, which is really amazing. But out of those who we start on anti-IgE treatment, 30% of these still remain symptomatic, so they still get diseases. So how do we know which patients will benefit and which not? Because after failure, we add cyclosporine, and some patients would say, okay, you're trying, and can't you just figure one condition that can, treat me? So instead of going from 1 tablet to 4, then starting anti-IgE, then cyclosporine, why don't you just start from the very beginning? And this is also one of the unmet needs. We lack some kind of biomarker, a marker that would tell us you are going to respond to this medicine. You're likely not going to respond to this, so I'll start that. However, overall, but I will not go too much in detail with this, there are some hints that urticariologists do in order to see whether this person would fit into an antihistamine responsive or anti-IgE responsive or some other immunosuppressants. So it would be really useful to have something that can identify which patient will respond and to what. When can we stop the treatment? For how long are we going to? Just a blood test, and then we say, okay, now it's time to stop, or now it's time to go back. So different biomarkers are there. For example, if your IgE is high, so it is raised, that is good. So you have response to treatment with antihistamine and anti-IgE. If you have basophils in your blood, eosinophils in your blood, so some specific allergy cells in the when you do the blood count, a simple test. So this points towards a better response. So these are the patients whom we say, okay, very likely you will respond to antihistamines or even omalizumab, an anti-IgE. However, and this comprises the majority of patients, 70 to 80% fall into this autoallergic type. So it's an allergy-driven, IgE-driven disease. There comes the other group of patients, and luckily it's a minority, only 10% of the patients. It's more in females, usually with higher disease activity. They have some autoimmune diseases with them, whether it's thyroid, maybe some autoimmune diabetes, vitiligo. So it's associated with some other forms of autoimmunity. They're usually more prone to angioedema than others, and the disease tends to be more frequent. So this is probably not always. It can happen to the autoallergic type where you can have frequent symptoms, but it might point towards a more severe and resistant disease. Their IgE tends to be low. Their thyroid antibodies, the IgG type, tends to be high. The basophils and eosinophils are low, and these would tell you most likely they would not respond so well to omalizumab, and they might respond better to cyclosporine or some form of immunosuppressant. So this is the updated predictors of response to the antihistamine, and maybe delayed response or non-response to omalizumab, having a low IgE, higher inflammatory markers or antibodies against the thyroid or any rheumatological disorder, with low eosinophils, basophils, and if they keep on receiving steroids and they do and respond only to steroids. So the higher the IgE, the better the response to omalizumab. And the lower the IgE, most likely, probably, they would respond more to cyclosporine. Now, what about special populations? So in pregnancy and lactation, we have a problem. Are antihistamines safe? Usually, yes, the majority. A few have not been studied in pregnancy, but we do have safe antihistamines such as loratadine, cetirizine, and also in lactation. But what about fourfolds? So this is where we become uncomfortable, though some experts do give the high dose of antihistamines, but this is when we start saying, okay, we need to be careful, especially in lactation. And then omalizumab, generally safe omalizumab, But what if this person fails omalizumab? So cyclosporin, for example, is a big question mark in pregnancy and lactation and other immunosuppressants as well. So the safety of other medications is a problem with pregnancy and lactation. And there are upcoming future medications coming, but unfortunately, it will not be suitable to be used in pregnant ladies or lactating, breastfeeding ladies. So this is one of the really serious unmet needs. And children, omalizumab is licensed for children 12 years, for example. What about the younger ones? And what about the high dose of antihistamines in younger children? Drug side effects. Let's not forget the elderly population, the older, they have lots of other diseases and they might have other medications, other treatments for heart or high blood pressure and so on. There might be some interaction when you use medicines, so many medicines together, and maybe even with high dose antihistamines and heart problems. Then, as you can see, overall, we have lots of gaps and we have a lot of unmet needs. So chronic urticaria poses a huge burden on individuals, caregivers, and the community, and achieving complete response is challenging for many patients, especially those special populations as well. So there is there are patients who still persist. At least a third of the patients might still persist despite the current medications. And unfortunately, when it's stopped, we never know when does the disease come back. So we cannot even predict if the disease has gone away, will never come back again, or will come back. So we do need more biomarkers in order to diagnose which patients will respond to what, monitor the treatment response, and even tell us when to stop. So thank you very much. And back to you.
Thank you very much. It was a great talk, really informative, and looking forward for the discussion at the end. Now we will, for sake of the time, go to the second talk by Dr. Demir. She will tell us about clinical trials and innovative therapies. The screens are yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Semra Demir, and in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share you some information about clinical trials and innovative therapies. I have no conflict of interest, and I would like to start with what are clinical trials and why they matter. Simply, a clinical trial is a carefully designed medical study that tests whether a treatment is safe and effective or compare existing ones. You may think that it's a way of being sure that therapy works well before widely available. And clinical trials have 4 phases involving different number of patients. And these phases build on one another to ensure safety and effectiveness. The aim of phase 1 studies is to discover the safe dosages levels, and the objectives of phase 2 studies are to further evaluate the safety and find the optimal dose, and also get early evidence about the effectiveness in more crowded patients. And lastly, phase 3 studies compare the new treatment with the best available one or placebo to see if it is safer or more effective in almost sometimes hundreds or thousands of patients across multiple centers from different countries. And the results of these studies are submitted to regulatory authorities to get approval to make it widely available. And phase 4 studies are conducted after the approval to learn more about the medications, such as long-term effect, rare risks, or how it really works on real-life settings. Clinical trials are vital for advancing medicines and very important for main 2 reasons. First, they allow us to discover new treatments that are safer, more effective, or more convenient than what exists today. Second, they give patients the opportunity to access new therapies that might not be available anywhere else yet. Furthermore, trials help us learn how treatments affect different kinds of people so that therapies are better tailored. It's obvious that without trials, medical progress will be very slow. We shouldn't forget that all the treatments we use today, once were part of a clinical trial. So understanding how this works can help you make more informed choices about your own health. Here are the reasons you as a patient might consider joining a clinical trial. You may receive a treatment that is not yet available to public. As a trial participant, you will be checked more frequently by doctors and healthcare staff. This provides closer tracking of your health. Even if it doesn't help you, your participation may help future patients by improving medical knowledge and treatments. Trials often covers the cost of the experimental treatment, some tests, and doctor's visit. So low cost could be an advantage for you. Of course, there are some concerns you should also know. But before I'll tell them, first, don't forget your privacy is protected against according to highly strict ethical standards. You may receive placebo at the beginning, but if drug works, you will receive it at the extension period. The new treatment might have unknown risks, such as might not work better than existing ones or might lead to side effects that are unknown yet. But close monitoring would prevent from being harmed. You may need to visit clinic more often. You may need to travel more often. So this may lead to time issues. But don't forget, your participation is always voluntary. You have the right to stop, and this decision won't prevent to get your standard medical care. Dear Iman has already told us about the chronic CSU treatment. The international guidelines suggest a stepwise therapeutic algorithm, and the main goal is providing complete symptom control and improve patients' goal. We have good medications, of course. However, despite these medications, some patients still struggling the symptoms because of the resistance to these drugs or because of intolerance of these drugs. So we need more safer and more effective treatments. When you check the clinical trial database, you will see many ongoing studies as in this list. This gives hope that significant advances may come soon. Muscats have a pivotal role in the development of chronic spontaneous urticaria. These cells can be activated by various mechanisms that result in similar symptoms, wheals and itch. And indeed, dear Iman has already told us what happens when a mast cell activated. And many novel therapies under development aim to target diverse receptors and signaling molecules to interrupt activation and mediative release. Over years, various treatments have been tested for chronic spontaneous urticaria. However, some of them did not work as well as we hoped. They failed to bring consistent benefit or had safety and tolerability issues. But if you have delivered encouraging results, and I'll talk about that. Let's start with Dupilumab because it has been approved by FDA in 12 years and older patients with CSU symptoms despite antihistamine. Dupilumab is a monoclonal antibody against interleukin-4 receptor alpha. It blocks two key immune signals in type 2 inflammation, namely interleukin-4 and interleukin-13. By this way, IgE production from B cells is prevented. And studies show that Dupilumab significantly improved the symptoms in patients with chronic spontaneous urticaria uncontrolled with under antihistamine therapy. However, it had limited efficacy in patients with CSU uncontrolled or intolerant omalizumab. A very recent study, which is a switch study from omalizumab to Dupilumab in resistant CSU patients, showed that Dupilumab may improve disease control in a subset of omalizumab-resistant CSU patients. Also, this study suggests that the response isn't perfect. A switch from omalizumab to dupilumab might give better disease control. And the other medication is ligelizumab. It's a second-generation anti-IgE monoclonal antibody with higher affinity for IgA. So we were very helpful about ligelizumab, but it failed to show expected effect. Indeed, at the beginning, early phase studies led to better responses than placebo and omalizumab. However, recently completed phase 3 trials in CSU show that ligelizumab was not superior to omalizumab. Therefore, further development of the medicine was halted. And remibrutinib is really promoting medicine for the CSU. It's an oral BTK inhibitor. BTK stands for Butyl tyrosine kinase, which is an essential intracellular molecule for the activation of mast cells. And inhibition of BTK results in inhibition mast cell activation and degranulation that makes BTK inhibition a potential therapeutic option in CSU. Remibrutinib is one of the most extensively studied BTK inhibitors in CSU, and clinical trials indicated that remibrutinib reduced symptoms significantly compared to placebo in patients with CSU uncontrolled with antihistamine. Also, it has a rapid onset of action and a sustained effect. It's generally well tolerated with mild side effects such as nasopharyngitis or gastrointestinal symptoms. Since it is pill, it might be more convenient for some patients than injectable medicines. It's a really promising drug, but it's not approved yet. Rilzabrutinib is another next-generation BTK inhibitor. Its early studies also demonstrated efficacy and rapid onset of action and an acceptable adverse event profile, but further research is needed to determine long-term efficacy and potential harms. Barzolvolimab is another interesting medication. It targets a specific protein called KIT, which is crucial for the function and survival of mast cells. A phase 2 study demonstrated significant improvements in CSU symptoms of patients uncontrolled with antihistamine. It also offered long-lasting relief for the patients. Results of ongoing studies evaluating its safety and efficacy in a broader population are still pending. Lirantilumab is a cyclic-8 monoclonal antibody. Cyclic-8 is an inhibitor receptor expressed on mast cells surface, and lirantilumab engagement to this molecule leads to inhibition of mast cell activation, so it's also called mast cell silencer. And early studies show that lirantilumab is effective and safe in omalizumab naive and omalizumab resistant patients with both chronic spontaneous urticaria and chronic inducible urticaria. However, later studies failed to show efficacy compared to placebo. Despite these mixed results, lirantilumab represents a novel approach to treating CSU by targeting a specific immune pathway. So further research are needed to determine exactly. And lastly, I would like to mention tezepelumab. It's an antithymic stromal lymphopoietin. A phase 2 study conducted in omalizumab naive and omalizumab resistant patients showed that at 16 weeks of the study in overall population, it was not superior to placebo. However, the sustained effect, which is observed in the follow-up period of treatment period, sustained effect in omalizumab naive patients with lower baseline IgE level and longer CSU duration. You may remember that dear Iman has already told us that lower baseline IgE level is a bad prognostic factor for the omalizumab response. So this drug could be important, but we need further research to determine its efficacy and safety in broader patient population. I would like to finish my presentation with a very recently published meta-analysis which combined the results of several good studies. It contains 23 randomized clinical trials and compared 26 different interventions or dosage and placebo. Interestingly, the results of this systematic review and network analysis suggest that just omalizumab and remibrutinib with different dosage and different prescription are effective pharmacologic treatments in patients with CSU unresponsive to antihistamines. To conclude, the journey of clinical trials in chronic spontaneous urticaria shows us that we are moving beyond just treating symptoms. We are now exploring therapies that target the root causes of the disease. With the new advanced medications, we have real hope for more patients achieving complete control of their hives and itching, especially those who haven't responded to existing options. As more data comes in from ongoing and future trials, we may see a shift from merely managing CSU to modifying its course. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Really nice talk, really informative, and new options to come. Exciting. I would like to remember all of you to send your questions or your comments into the questions and comment and answer box that we will discuss after the next talk, which Professor Khoshkhui will talk about future perspective and personalized treatment approaches. The screens are yours.
I have no conflict of interest related to this presentation. First of all, I would like to talk about history of personalized medicine. 2400 years ago, Hippocrates said it's far more important to know what person the disease has than what disease the person has. It was the first idea of personalized medicine. In ancient time, treatment of diseases was more metaphysical than physical, was more related to spirit, mind than physics. I want to ask you a question. One size fits all? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. One size does not fit all. Every patient is different. Every patient has their own characteristic. For example, lifestyle, environment, genetic. Every patient has different in these items. Although the definition of personalized medicine have a lot of variety and diverse, but if there is something that anyone agree on, is that the right drug at right time, at right dose for each patient is so important. Tailored treatment. What about tailored treatment? Tailored treatment is under the umbrella of personalized medicine. I love this cover image of Allergy journal so much. I think the artist was so creative and shows that someone is being dressed with their own DNA. It's the perfect way to show personalized medicine and show tailored treatment. What is omics approach? To facilitate a better understanding of omic approach, I will provide an example for you. Please think that or imagine that you want to know how one car works. You can just only look at one part. For example, just only look at engine. But you can consider all of the parts. Omics approach is like second method. Evaluate all of the parts. Instead of just only one gene or one protein at a time, it tries to look at all of them at the same time. The word of omics comes from the suffix om, It means all of or set of. For example, genome means all of gene, or proteome means all of protein, or microbiome is all of normal flora. Omics approach evaluate all of them, not only just one of them. Why patients should know about omics approach, about personalized medicine, about tailored treatment? Please pay attention to this conversation. It's a common conversation between physician and patient in office. Patient says, one of my relatives had a similar problem and this medication was for her. Would you please prescribe this for me? But physician answer, let me check your condition first, and then we'll see if this medication is suitable for you or not. Every medication isn't suitable for every patient. It is so important, patients' attention to this point. Another development in science is jumping from phenotype to endotype. What is phenotype? Phenotype is observable characteristics of disease based on demographic factor, response to treatment, trigger, and also means what the disease looks like outside. If we want to describe it simple, it means what we see outside. But what is endotype? Endotype, what happened inside. It's so important. And if we want to explain is more academic, it means subclassification based on molecular mechanism, pathogenic pathway, allow for targeted therapy based on biomarkers. I will talk to you about the biomarkers, and my colleagues also talk about it. And endotype focus on biomarker rather than the surface manifestation. What is biomarker? Biomarker is one of the major advancements in personalized medicine, and biomarker is a biological characteristic that can be measured, for example, in urine, in blood, and evaluate as an indicator of normal biologic process and treatment response. Biomarker can be molecule, can be gene, can be physiological measurement, and give valuable information about health condition and state of disease. In recent study and with progress of science, chronic spontaneous urticaria, we have two endotype of this, type 1 autoallergy CSU and type 2 autoimmune CSU. The most well-known biomarker is IgE. And based on this, type 1 has high IgE, type 2 has low IgE, type 1 has high comorbid atopic diseases and good response to omalizumab, but type 2 has poor response to omalizumab. In this slide, you can see other biomarkers like anti-TPO, IgG anti-TPO, CRP, that high IgG anti-TPO and high CRP or D-dimer are biomarker for type 2B autoimmune CSU. In this slide, you can see the last treatment guideline that we start at first antihistamines, then updose. If the patient doesn't respond, we start omalizumab, and if the patient doesn't respond, next step we will add cyclosporine. There are some examples for the implication of biomarkers. Biomarkers help us for personalized medicine. If we know biomarker, we can manage patients better, and the patients can take benefit from management. For example, if the patient had high D-dimer, high UCT, and very severe disease and high inducible urticaria with the disease, for example, have cold urticaria, have cholinergic urticaria, have high CRP, and if these comorbidities like Sindhu is accompanied with CSU, it's a marker that it is possible that patient doesn't have good response to second generation of antihistamines. About the omalizumab, also we have biomarkers. If the patient have high anti-TPO, low IgE, positive autologous serum skin test, basopenia, the chance to respond to omalizumab is low. Also, we have these items for cyclosporine, high anti-TPO, low IgE, positive autologous serum skin test are markers that show the patient have good response to cyclosporine. Most of us and the patient and physician know omalizumab as a biologic drug, but if we want to explain more about what is biological drug, because the science of biological drugs is in progress, a biologic drug is a medication derived from living organisms, including proteins, sugars, nucleic acid, and is used for treat various medical conditions and often targeting a specific biological process. You can see mast cell, the most important cell in CSU, and what we expect biologic in CSU. Maybe kill mast cell, maybe inhibit mast cell, inhibit production of mast cell, remove mast cell. It's the cell surface of mast cell full of receptor, adhesion molecule, and target therapy find these and block and help to develop the medication that we use for management of CSU patients. In the next years, and in recent years also, the development of science help us to focus on novel pathways beyond IgE, not just only IgE. And as my colleague Semra said, there is many clinical trials that focus on new pathways. You can see in my slide briefly that new drugs that some of them mast cell mediator inhibitors, some of them silence mast cell, some of them deplete mast cell, some of them mast cell activation antagonists, and these are the development of science. About the future, I hope the future of urticariology, we can find more, understand pathophysiology, finding more biomarker, and finally, accurate diagnosis and treatment. And I'm optimistic that we reach the day that all of the patient will treat with just only one pill. In the future, AI will change the urticariology, the science of urticariology. I don't advise to refer AI instead of physician or instead of urticariologist, but I mean that AI help us for personalized medicine and help us to think beyond one size fits all, because one size fits all, the result of one size fits all is maybe some patients get involved in adverse effects, some of them don't receive response, and I think when we can use personalized medicine, at the end, all of the patients are more happy and they don't waste their money, and overall will help us to better management and to better diagnosis. To summarize, I think we have a great future, and I hope everything goes well, and we can find more biomarker, we can approach more precisely and help more patients. At the end, I would like to wish a happy World Urticaria Day. This is a photo of our team. We celebrate every year Urticaria Day, and this year we celebrated Urticaria Day yesterday, and we decided to have this day in a different way. We went hiking, and we went to the top of mountain, not tall mountain, but take photo, and we have a great time. We have an amazing day, and I hope every urticaria patient gets better and have a better health. Thank you for inviting me again. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Khoshkhui. Great talk, great presentation. A lot of exciting new treatments and options coming up. I would like to start with the discussion. I will not direct it to one of you, but if you feel that you have an answer for it, then just turn on your microphone and answer it. The first question that was written on the chat was, what about the treatment with Dupixent, especially in type 2A CSU patients?
I may answer this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence means that it's type 2B CSU, not A. CSU is autoimmune CSU, as Iman has already told us that usually they have IgG autoantibodies, not IgE autoantibodies, and they have low level of IgE levels. We know that dupilumab works in patients independent from the baseline serum IgE levels. We have limited information about dupilumab in the CSU, but we know that it works independent from baseline lower IgE levels. But indeed, there's no comparison studies that compare the type 1, I mean autoallergic or autoimmune disease. So we don't say exactly it, but we know that it works independent from low level of baseline IgE levels.
Great. Professor Khoshkhui or Iman, you want to add something?
No, nothing. No.
The next question that we have here is, how do patients respond to omalizumab if they have normal lab results since day one? The response to antihistamines is not sufficient. It only helps relieve the itchiness. Is there a way to say if antihistamines don't work, will the patient be a good response to have a good response to omalizumab?
It depends what they mean by normal lab results. For example, the IgE might be normal, but a bit within the range. So there is IgE. It's not that it's very, very low. Whether the thyroid peroxidase was normal, so that's good. So this all points towards autoallergic, which means that they would respond. So it depends on what do they mean by a normal. So not all. So we don't expect the IgE to be abnormally high or raised. So there is some IgE in the body, the higher the better. So within the normal range based on the lab. If the thyroid peroxidase antibodies that was done is normal, so that's a good thing. So it means it's an autoallergic type, and those patients might respond to antihistamine. But even those, they still, there is a chance that they would fail maximum antihistamines and they would have a better response with omalizumab, for example, an anti-IgE treatment. So those, I would consider them as good responders. If the normal lab means that the IgE is very low, so that means that it's also, part of the normal. So this probably, yes, would be a problem in terms of most likely the patient might not respond really well to anti-IgE or maybe the antihistamines. So if this is meant by that, then probably the patient, we would expect that there is a big chance that the patient will not respond to antihistamines well and probably not respond to omalizumab, maybe a later responder, maybe no response. And this is where cyclosporine, for example, might be tried in those patients.
Great, thank you very much. You said at the beginning of your talk that there are two types of chronic urticaria, so the spontaneous type and the inducible type. Is omalizumab available, or these drugs that we discussed today, also for inducible or just for the spontaneous? And do they work in inducible urticarias like heat urticaria or a cold urticaria?
Can I answer?
Sure.
Okay, it works for both of them. And we use also for CSU and SINDU, both of them, but FDA approval for CSU. But sometimes we can use it for SINDU.
Great. What about scientific? Is there any scientific correlations between slightly elevated hepatic enzymes like IST or ILT for years with urticaria? These enzymes are rarely elevated, so under twice of the upper level normal of the laboratory, and other labs including basophils, IgE, IgG, skin allergic tests are all negative or normal range. Is there a way that this hepatic enzymes could influence the urticaria activity?
I would definitely with raised liver enzymes, and if it continues to raise, so it's not a short interval, up to 2 times, I wouldn't really worry. However, if it continues to be like this, then definitely it needs to be investigated, just to make sure that it's not some other conditions where it might have caused the urticaria. So like an autoimmune type, for example. We do have sometimes deranged liver enzymes when the patient, for example, or the person, I'm not saying patient, but when the person has a virus infection, for example, this can happen. The enzymes might be slightly deranged, or if they take some medications, or in some occasions if they drink alcohol, or so sometimes there might be a reason for this deranged enzymes. However, anything that takes longer than it should, so anything more than 2 weeks at least, so I would definitely recommend to be seen and make sure that it's not caused by an underlying condition, and probably maybe that is what is causing the urticaria in the first place.
Professor Khoshkhui?
About the question, one of the problem that I think in every country we face with it, that urticaria patients like to evaluate more, to do more laboratory data, to do skin prick tests. And I like to tell the patient that, and we discuss about the pathophysiology, that most of the time the cause is not allergy, and so they don't seek allergy test, liver function test. As my experience, most of the laboratory findings are normal in CSU patient. In most of them, just only maybe anti-TPO that I mentioned in my presentation, maybe elevated, that it's the one of the most comorbidity, autoimmune thyroiditis in hypothyroid in patients with CSU. And finally, I would like to tell patients that don't insist the physician that do for me a skin prick test, send for me all of the laboratory exam lab, but it's not necessary.
Thank you very much. That in order to keep with the time, it was a great webinar. I think all of our speakers and again our sponsors and all of you that participated. I will shortly present a few slides. Can you see my slides? Please scan the code or go to the link and give us our feedback. How can we improve and which topics you want to learn? What do you want to hear from your doctors? And how can we help the urticaria world? We also want to introduce We See You, which is a first patient advocacy organization. You can go to the link and find more activities and what increase awareness and how to create a community in urticaria. Also, don't forget tomorrow is 1st of October and we celebrate the Urticaria Day, which we have a few Your Day website activities to be shown. Stay tuned. You can register to our newsletter and don't miss future events and webinars and activities. And also in social media, you can find our videos. If you were not able to see it today, you will find us in YouTube and you can see it and recommend it to your friends or other patients with urticaria. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Novartis, for sponsoring this webinar, and I hope you had a great time. Thank you all for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.